Be me, Grant, 29, back-end dev at small SaaS startup called Chorus Meet, running out of rental co-working space. Product is AI meeting assistant that records calls, spits out summaries, counts who talked and who talked over who. Pay is okay. Free cold brew on tap, beanbags everywhere. Founders say runway, like it's a spell against bankruptcy. Day job is wiring message queues and databases, so our little snitchbot remembers every awkward thing people say on Zoom. Company is half engineers, half product, 3 sales bros, and 1 overworked HR generalist who mostly does payroll and snacks. Things are chaotic, but simple. Main religion is uptime and not embarrassing ourselves in front of paying customers. Then generalist disappears from Slack one Monday, and we get an all-hands invite titled, "Welcoming Our New People Leader." Everyone drags laptops into glass fishbowl conference room that smells like espresso and recycled ambition. Projector comes on. Slide reads, "Building justice into every conversation," which already feels heavier than our Postgres cluster. Woman in sharp jumpsuit steps up, buzz cut, big earrings, laptop covered in stickers about smashing patriarchy and healing spaces. She introduces herself as Riley, new head of people and culture, here to align product, process, and politics. Founder Jonah stands next to her, grinning like a guy who just sold his soul for a good Series A slide. Riley talks about how meetings are sites of invisible power. Men dominate airtime, women get interrupted, trauma accumulates in transcripts. Says Chorus Meet has unique chance to become the conscience layer of corporate communication, not just another soulless SaaS. Everyone claps politely while silently calculating how many quarters until they need to update LinkedIn again. Week later, first big initiative hits Slack, pinned in every channel. Title: Fair Voice Program Launch. Fair Voice uses our own product to track how much each gender talks, interrupts, and uses dominating vocabulary. There's a new dashboard, rank-ordered list called Equity Leaderboard, with tiny avatars and percentages of fair participation. Men get red bars if they speak more than 35% of total words in any recurring meeting. Women get gold stars for holding space, literal badges that show up next to their names in internal channels. Riley posts long message saying scores will be discussed in performance reviews to align incentives with values. Click leaderboard, see myself somewhere in middle, slightly above neutral, because I actually answer questions in stand-ups. Sales bro Tyler is glowing crimson, 70% talk time in his pipeline reviews, which surprises exactly 0 people. He jokes, "Guess I'll shut up then." Riley replies with 3 paragraphs about discomfort being part of growth. Next announcement is consent-based DMs policy, accompanied by pastel infographic showing arrows between male and female avatars. Rule says any man wanting to DM a woman about non-strictly work stuff must send a quick consent ping first. Format is pre-built /command/consent. Sends message. Hey, can I DM you about X? No pressure to say yes. Policy calls it micro-boundary hygiene. My brain calls it friction plus paperwork for asking about a Figma link. First day, it goes live. Tyler forgets. DM's designer Mia a meme gets auto-reply from bot asking him to log reflection. Riley comments in hashtag announcements that slip-ups happen, but patterns will be examined, which sounds like threat-wearing cardigan. Then comes Tone Guardian, feature nobody asked for that somehow becomes mandatory overnight. Tone Guardian is a bot wired into Slack that scans mail-written messages, for aggressive markers and patronizing phrasing. If it detects a phrase from its blacklist, it pops a modal suggesting softer alternatives before message can be sent. I type, "This query is wrong. We need to fix join logic." Hit enter, get blocked by pop-up saying, "Consider, this query might need adjustment." There's a slider labeled cooperative framing, default set to highest, undoing it grayed out with tooltip locked by admin. Entire engineering room spends first afternoon arguing with the bot, rewriting sentences to trick it like cranky schoolteacher. Product team thinks it's funny until they realize same bot trashes their pushy launch deadlines in group channels. Riley posts screenshot of Tone Guardian stats, proud of massive drop in harsh male-coded language over first week. Nobody mentions simultaneous spike in meetings because everyone is now afraid to write anything direct in text. One morning, Jonah calls engineering into quick stand-up, says we landed pilot with big enterprise client called Novatel Systems. Novatel wants to roll out our AI across thousands of employees if proof of concept goes well, runway doubling kind of deal. They specifically liked Riley's Fairvoice deck about measuring interruptions and airtime, want DEI baked into comms. I get assigned to make sure Fairvoice scales to their volume, plus new justice metrics screen Riley promised during sales call. Her spec for justice metrics arrives as 6 pages of Google Doc with phrases like, quantify emotional harm vectors over time. She wants dashboards showing not just talk time, but respect deltas, acknowledgement density, and repair statements per male offender. I highlight half the doc, comment, "We don't store emotions." She replies with 3 links to think pieces and says, "Be creative." End up approximating her nonsense with hacked together counts of apologies, thank you sentences, and context windows around interruptions. Push it behind feature flag, add warnings about performance cost. Pray Novatel never clicks it during peak hours. Fairvoice expansion quietly slows everything. Meeting summaries take longer to generate. Queues spike. We add more instances to compensate. Riley then launches internal Fairvoice Fridays, weekly review of worst mail scores streamed to entire company. She shares anonymized charts about how certain roles still crowd out voices, sometimes obvious who's who anyway. My name shows up in midband, labeled recovering overcontributor, which feels like getting participation trophy for shutting up. Couple weeks later, new policy appears. Men speak last protocol for all structured meetings over 4 participants. Protocol says anyone identifying as man should hold back until women and non-binary folks have had chance to share. Tone Guardian uses transcripts to flag men who break turn order pattern, sends them polite educational emails. In daily stand-up, I have bug report ready, but after 3 people give vague updates, there's silence and awkward staring. Nobody wants to speak next because they're doing mental gender calculus. Minutes drip by like cold brew concentrate. Finally, Riley, lurking quietly, chimes in to praise the beautiful restraint we're practicing, while Jira backlog grows another 3 heads. I try to adapt, dump technical detail into tickets instead. Meetings become theater where nothing real gets decided. Riley beams about, meetings not dominated by masculine energy, while we afterwards fix planning in side chats off record. She hates side chats, launches shadow channel audit, scanning private group names for signs of off-piste collaboration. Next big feature she announces is Client Fairvoice Now, turning all this internal surveillance outward as sellable add-on. Novotel loves the idea on paper. Boards eat up any graph with oppression on y-axis and time on x-axis. Riley promises their leadership that our system can show exactly which managers silence women and which teams perform allyship. Sitting in demo, listening to her, I realize we're basically selling weaponized performance reviews disguised as AI ethics. She then casually mentions that our internal metrics will be showcased live in Big Novotel Kickoff as role model of transparency. Means our chaos becomes part of sales deck, no way to hide weird experiments behind in development excuse anymore. As if things weren't spicy enough, she drops camera fairness next, requiring men to keep cameras on in all internal meetings. Rationale is men historically could lurk invisible, while women felt pressure to appear presentable. So now cameras equalize gaze. Women get optionality, men get mandatory green light, tone guardian tracks, visual engagement time for male employees. Working from home suddenly means making sure laundry pile is off camera, while product manager monologues about roadmap feelings. Every time my camera flickers or freezes, Slack pings me with automated note about interrupted visibility may trigger concern. Some guys start taping smiley faces to chairs and leaving for bathroom, getting flagged by random freeze frame detection. Riley sends company-wide note calling that camera sabotage, warns future offenders will be invited to reflective conversations. She also modifies our meeting bot to auto-email anyone whose interruptions per minute crosses her arbitrary threshold. Email's subject line reads, "Tiny nudge toward being a better listener. Content, passive-aggressive enough to peel paint." One evening, Novotel runs big internal town hall with our AI turned on. Pilot across regional managers. Justice Metrics thrashes CPU. Heat climbs. Our cluster chokes, summarizing 1,000 voices, plus fairness metrics in real time. Pipeline delays so bad, Novotel exec gets summary for their big diversity segment half an hour after meeting ends. Riley spins lag as, "We're gathering richer context than traditional tools." Novotel contact politely asks if we can, maybe not. We scramble, add more caching, trim some of the heaviest analysis, beg infrastructure not to collapse for at least another quarter. Jonah announces board demo, plus Novotel renewal discussion scheduled same week. Double or nothing kind of situation. Riley declares that day, Equity Showcase Day, says we'll run all justice features live to impress everyone at once. Engineers collectively develop ulcer, just reading that. Ask if we can dumb it down behind the scenes. Get told no. The night before, Showcase My Pager lights up at midnight. Logs full of Tone Guardian timeouts and database deadlocks. Apparently, whoever updated Dictionary pushed huge rule set, including several thousand new, harmful phrases. Broke cache sizes. System tries to load entire lexicon into memory per process. Boxes start swapping harder than interns trading stickers. I roll back Dictionary, leave critical fairness features up, go to bed at 3:45 with the fear of God in JSON. Equity Showcase Day morning arrives. Office fills with too much deodorant and nervous laughter. Board members join via video wall. Novotel VP joins from some polished glass box with tasteful plant. Money smell through screen. Riley opens with speech about owning our own data. Says we'll bravely show our internal metrics before looking at anyone else's. Chorus Meet bot dutifully records, transcribes, counts every and interruption while I watch CPU graphs like horror movie. Riley pulls up Dashboard Live, points to participation chart where men's talk time dropped company-wide over last quarter. What she doesn't mention is we disabled transcripts for half engineering stand-ups to keep system afloat. Numbers now biased toward marketing chatter. She flips to justice metrics and shows chart labeled repair statements by gender. Men bar twice as high as women. Spins it as men stepping up to repair harm. I silently think, no, men being forced to apologize for using direct verbs. Board seems impressed anyway. One member calls it marketable conscience at scale. Jonah practically vibrating with valuation fantasies. Novotel VP asks if clients can customize thresholds. Riley says yes, points at config screen I begged her not to demo. Config UI tied straight to production values, no guardrails, slider labeled sensitivity to interruptions, can wreck our alerting. She drags slider up dramatically to very sensitive, says, see, you can surface even subtle patterns. Clicks save before anyone stops her. Entire cluster quietly screams as pipeline recalculates metrics for whole tenant with hyper-aggressive settings. Moments later, Tone Guardian detects Novotel VP interrupting a junior manager in live call with us, flags it as harmful pattern. Because of the configuration Riley insisted on, system is in active coaching mode and auto-emails participants after meeting. A few minutes after the interruption, VP's phone buzzes. He glances down and frowns in a way you never want on a sales call. Email subject on his screen big enough to read on camera. Your behavior may be silencing marginalized voices in meetings. Room goes dead silent. Even fans sound guilty. Riley starts stumbling through explanation about opt-in nudges and default settings. VP looks into camera and says slowly, so your tool just accused me of harming my staff in the middle of our evaluation. Jonah tries to joke about beta quirks. Nobody laughs. Board members suddenly very interested in how opt-outs actually work. Right then, backend falls behind further. Summaries for parallel Novotel internal calls start timing out, support channel lighting up. We have delays, angry admins, and one very insulted exec. All live while our own fairness graphs glow on giant screen. Meeting ends with polite corporate phrases like, we'll follow up, and we appreciate your transparency, which feel like eulogies. After call, Jonah asks leadership, plus me, plus Riley, to stay in main room. Glass doors closing with soft, ominous click. He looks more tired than I've ever seen him. Not founder high, just guy who realized his dream product turned into landmine. First, he asks me to walk through technical part. What exactly happened when Riley played with sensitivity slider? Explain that Justice Metrics pipeline is heavy, thresholds tuned carefully. Auto-coaching mode meant for small internal tests, not live exec calls. Mention I flagged UI multiple times, asked for safety checks, got told slowing down feature work would be resistance to progress. Riley interrupts to say, engineers often overstate risk when cultural change threatens them, calls this a classic defensive narrative. Jonah ignores that, asks why VP got unsolicited behavior email if this was supposed to be opt-in pilot. I show config screen where send live nudges box is ticked, note audit log entry showing it toggled by user Riley 2 days earlier. Riley says she doesn't recall changing that, suggests perhaps someone on engineering team misconfigured environment. I pull up deployment log, show it's not tied to deployments, just admin actions. Point at timestamp during one of her Fair Voice Fridays. Room gets very still. Board member on call unmutes just to breathe heavily near microphone like disappointed father. Legal counsel, who had been silent square in corner, finally speaks, asks if any of these fairness features went through formal review. She also asks about consent policy, DM logging, whether we're now technically processing sensitive behavioral data without proper documentation. Riley leans hard into language about moral mandates, says sometimes law must catch up to justice, which is exactly opposite counsel wanted. Jonah asks me quietly how much code would need ripping out to disable all justice extras cleanly for clients. Answer honestly that core product can run without them, but they're now tangled in billing tiers and pitch decks. He sits back, rubs face, then asks Riley if any of her reports or internal Fair Voice charts were manually adjusted before board meetings. She says, "No, of course not. Numbers come from pure system. We all know data doesn't lie unless men manipulate it." He gestures for me again, asks if that's true. I pull up admin panel I built for debugging fairness anomalies. Panel shows Riley used hidden filter toggle to exclude certain meetings from aggregate metrics, mostly ones labeled sales and HR coaching. Without those, men's talk time looks much higher and apology counts lower. With them, charts more balanced, narrative less extreme. Riley says those meetings were outliers. Leaving them in would distort story and discourage women from sharing vulnerably. Board member mutters, "So you farmed your own data for slogans. Counsel writes something down that probably translates to Exhibit A." There's no dramatic shouting, just slow accumulation of realization that one person tied legal risk, angry client, and cooked charts together. Meeting wraps with Jonah saying they'll pause all Fair Voice expansions, bring in external auditors, and review leadership alignment. Rumor mill goes nuclear that afternoon. Riley's office door stays closed. Slack shows her status as in a conversation for hours. End of week CEO email drops, thanking Riley for passion, announcing her departure to pursue justice work in other arenas. No farewell party, no speeches, just maintenance request to remove her slogans from communal whiteboard in kitchen. Tone Guardian gets silently disabled. Fair Voice leaderboard hidden behind admin toggle, men speak, last protocol moved to archived docs. Company goes into quiet damage control mode with Novatel, offering discounts, dedicated support, and promise never to auto-email their VP again. I'm not celebrated as whistleblower. I didn't plan anything anyway, just answered questions with logs when asked. Still, something shifts. Managers start asking engineering for risk assessments before promising magical moral AI on sales calls. Month later, recruiter pings me from a boring B2B billing platform. Tech stack similar, no mentions of justice in job description. I interview. Hiring manager says main priority is make invoices go out, don't leak data, don't lie to customers. The simplicity feels like spa day for brain that spent a year measuring apologies per mail per quarter. On my last day at Chorus Meet, Jonah swings by my desk, thanks me for keeping receipts and not sugarcoating how things work. Tell him I hope they find way to use our tech without turning every meeting into courtroom for vibes. Walk out past wall where equity leaderboard once lived, now just fresh paint and slightly cleaner air. Step into pale parking lot sunlight, Phone blessedly free of nudges about my tone. Just generic weather app whining about rain. Think about Riley somewhere pitching another company on AI-powered fairness, already drawing arrows from harm to opportunity. Don't feel triumphant, just relieved I won't be the one trying to keep servers alive under weight of her next experiment. Sometimes the win isn't watching someone crash, it's stepping out of the driver's seat before they aim at the cliff again. And finding a place where transcripts are just text, dashboards are just graphs, and justice doesn't run on your database cluster.